Wait for everyone to get in here. Waiting on Jim and J.
Did Matty get audio yet? No. Check your audio settings and see if it is connected to your headphones, your internal mic, or just reboot.
Yeah, Matty, if
There
you
was a recent update and everything seems to have gone a little nutty after that.
Hello.
Yay!
Hey, there we are.
Woo!
You now have my dulcet tones, everybody.
Welcome.
How is everyone?
Wonderful. We're looking forward to having you in the conversation today. It was very constructive yesterday and productive conversation on the world of stage management. So we're happy that you're here with us.
I'm glad to be here.
Yay, it worked.
Our team is filling in.
Oh, wow. Everyone's in show black but me.
You're the smart one.
I did consider putting a white t-shirt on, but I realized I actually don't have anything other than black t-shirts.
Oh, no.
Nice to meet you, Jen. How are you?
You too.
Yeah, I once bought a colorful t-shirt when I was on tour and took it back to the hotel and ran into the rest of the crew in the lobby, and they were like, "Oh, what'd you get? What'd you get? Show us." Pulled it out, and I'm like, "Why'd you buy that? Are you gonna wear that?"
Entire wardrobe is black. I'm like, what am I wearing today? Black or black?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
A little black.
All day.
While we wait for everyone to come in, one thing I wish I had is one of those in Toy Story, you know, the Bo Peep wrangling stick, because I once had a photographer for a major music publication who will remain nameless, who went on my stage in a white t-shirt to shoot the show.
Mm-hmm. I've dragged a few people off stage for that before.
Grabbed them by the neck.
I did a monitor engineer who wore these really bright, luminescent, like green shoes, and I was like, "You can't wear them in case you need to go on stage." It's like if I go on stage, there's something more important to worry about than the color of my shoes. I'm like, if you go on stage in those shoes, everyone knows something's wrong. Like, just back up, man. You know.
Back in 2 seconds. I'm just grabbing something.
A lot of fun question to ask our students was who remembered to turn their clock, spring forward. We've made it. More sunlight in the day for all the
Thank God for
risers.
smartphones. That's all I have to say. We're still waiting for J. Dot. Did J. Dot get in? Do we see him? I knew people were having some problems getting in this morning. J. Dot. I don't see J. Dot.
We will begin here shortly. I think we still have students filling in.
We're also waiting. We're waiting on J. Dot.
J. Dot and Adrian. Yeah.
And Adrian had to reboot.
Yeah, she's on her way.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was I think the Zoom update recently did something kind of nutty.
Yeah.
Back in 1 second.
Oh, yeah. J. Dot's having issues, so just send me a message.
Doug and Matty, I look a little cleaner now. We did a quick prep with Matty this morning, and I had just gotten done spending 2 hours shoveling snow.
Oh,
3 feet of snow, very wet snow.
where do you live?
I live in Los Angeles, but I've been in Denver. My family, I'm from Denver originally, and my parents are here, so I've been out here helping them navigate the vaccine system because they're elderly. But we got 3 feet of snow yesterday.
Very lucky.
Yeah, but it being Colorado, it's supposed to all melt today. So had to shovel it out and give it like
Hey, J.
a
Dot.
helping hand. But yeah,
Well,
Hey,
you're still
I'm giving you
while
the
you're still dealing with
reference,
snow. We
I'll
even
send it to
our
you.
spring already happened. It feels
Right.
like summer here now. It's like 100% humidity and it's hot. So that's
Ah,
New Orleans weather for you.
Oh, it'll be like
yeah.
that here at the end of this week, probably. I wish it was hot right now. Actually,
Can you-
it's nice. I don't mind it. I actually like winter.
I
Can
did-
you send some of that over here, please?
Mark's weather
Yeah, some
or the snow.
please.
Yes,
Just
it is.
some heat. Some heat would be
Our
nice.
our weather here, weather patterns are a roller coaster. It's like we get winter for a week and then it's spring. Now it's hot. It's even hotter than spring. It feels
Yeah.
like summer. Like
Yeah.
I'm scared of hurricanes. I don't know how you guys do it. I'd rather have a blizzard than a hurricane.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
And you've gone through a lot this year, Mark.
yeah, we New Orleans dodged like 6 or 7 hurricanes and then we got hit by the last one and the Gulf Coast got hit a ton. So they're still rebuilding right now. Even myself, my family's rebuilding from the hurricane season last year still.
It's insane, man. It's insane. It's just something we have over here, obviously, as you know. It's just like every time we see that stuff on the news, it's like it's just tragic, man. It's bizarre. It's so crazy.
Looks like we have everyone. Oh, we're just missing J Dot.
We're waiting
J-Dot
for
should be
J
on his
Dot.
way.
He was
I
I'm gonna
just sent
put
him
out
the
my
link.
readers, then I'll be right back. I took the wrong glasses. Can't find them in 2 seconds.
What's J Dot's real name?
Dennis.
last
Joseph.
name is
Last name.
Dennis.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't think I actually know. I've known J Dot for like 20
Yeah.
years, and I don't
Wow.
know what his
I'm
first name
staring at the
He's
J's.
obviously one of those guys with the first name with 2 first names. So
Oh, wait, here he is. Here he is. Jay Dennis, right here.
J Dennis. Yay!
Sorry, guys. Here he comes.
All right.
sorry, J-Dad, we got a little something changed this week.
We still have students flowing in too, which is nice.
Yeah.
We're all here now.
We've
Okay,
made
go
it.
for show.
We
I
have,
thought I was doing something wrong, and I'm like freaking out.
Yeah, no, we're all going through the same thing, J-Dad, so it's all good.
we're all
Yeah,
here.
yeah. We had some audio problems this morning and everything. There was some sort of update that I don't know what happened.
Jenna is back. We're all here. Welcome everyone for another episode of TM 101. It is episode number 69. We are looking forward to continuing our Spotlight On series. If you have not yet, please make sure to change your chat settings to all panelists and attendees. That helps us address our questions. For all our YouTube watchers, we're here. We're watching the chat and staying along with you as well. If you have yet to join our YouTube channel, please make sure to join, subscribe, and follow there. It keeps you updated with just everything we got going on with TM 101. And today we are talking stage managers. Like always, and to all of our students who have been here with us from the beginning, I pass it over to Henry to get the intro started, and we'll get this going. How's it going, Henry?
Thanks, Mark. So, as we continue a Spotlight On series where we focus in on a different role or department, like Mark said, today we are talking stage management. Under the production manager, the stage manager is the brain that guides the hands and feet of any crew from load in to load out. It is the highest ranking position on any stage. The list of duties is long, so the responsibility level is high. Today, we are joined by 3 distinguished stage managers from different fields and corners of the globe. So let's welcome them to TM 101 and go around the screen and give a brief intro on what your current position is, how you've been in, how long you've been in the industry, and who you've worked with in the past. Gena, let's start with you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Gena Rositano, and I am currently the stage manager, the talent stage manager for Saturday Night Live. I've been there for 25 years. I've had 35 years in the television industry. I started at MTV, worked at MTV, which is inclusive of many different shows. Remote Control was a show where I was the talent coordinator. I did many spring breaks, many award shows. So I've done the Jon Stewart show, both for MTV and then when he was syndicated. I worked on a show called Spectacle with Elvis Costello, and a show called The Marriage Ref with Jerry Seinfeld, among other things. So That's
Jeez,
me.
That's
Hi.
incredible. We're so happy to have you here. J. Dot, tell us about yourself.
So actually my name is Jay, period. And so AKA J Dot. Been in the business since 86, 88 when my first shows. Been tour managing for quite a while now. Been tour manager for Tool, My Chemical Romance.
Stage manager.
My Chemical
Sorry, I had to give
Romance.
you a hard time about that.
I know. Rihanna, Jay-Z, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and for the last 6 years, I've been stage manager for Magic Dragons, and more that I can't even remember.
That's crazy. It's so good to have you here, man. And Matty, glad to have you here too, man. Thanks for
Hey,
joining.
man.
You're joining us from London today, right?
I am in Walthamstow in London. Yeah.
Awesome. Tell us.
Sorry. So I'm Matty Roberts. I've been in the industry like 18 years. I started out slightly differently to everybody else. I think I was a drummer originally. I was in band, and I moved through into the crew side of things. I was production manager mainly. I production managed Rudimental and Sarah Larson, DJ Shadow, among a few others. I've also worked for Rita Ora and Rudimental, Gorgon City, Half Moon Run with our dear friend Doug Wilson here. Hi, Doug. And I'm currently stage manager for Lewis Capaldi.
Thank you, Matty. And it's such a pleasure to have you here. Matty's a dear friend of mine. We came up together, and one of my very first tours, Matty was the drummer on. My career trajectory went like this, and Matty's went like this. So very great to have you here. And I've toured with J Dot as well, and he treated my band like the stars they were, even though we were opening for his. So, and Gena, welcome along. You know, we haven't met, but you know, yesterday was amazing. So this is going to be a great conversation today. Let's start by talking about how you got into the industry, Gena. How you got your start and how you got into the position you are in today. Oh, you're muted.
Audio. So I'm a stage manager and I don't do audio. I was a theater major at NYU. I wanted to be an actress. And while I was there, there was a very new company called MTV. I got an internship at MTV. And I was able to do everything while I was an intern, from writing scripts for VJs to actually doing fill-in VJ shifts when they needed somebody on the overnights. So my internship was incredible and probably the most important thing I've ever done. While I was there, I decided that I liked being behind the camera and was much more comfortable than I was being in front of the camera. And I found that stage managing was actually my strong point, because having studied theater, working with talent is very, very easy for me. So I was there for a number of years. We started a show called The Jon Stewart Show, which was, in those days, it was sort of a Conan O'Brien-like talk show. It was syndicated, so I left MTV to work on Jon's show with Jon. A year and a half later, we were canceled. The director from Jon Stewart, who was one of my best friends, started at Saturday Night Live. And after a year of her being there, the original stage manager retired. Had nothing to do with her being there. They got along very well. And then she asked me to join. And after about 2 months of saying no, I said yes. And I've been there ever since. And that was 25 years ago.
Wow, that's amazing. Quite the run.
Yeah.
J-Dot, you have quite a unique way that you got into this industry. Can you give us a quick rundown and how you became the go-to stage manager for some of the biggest artists in the world?
Well, I started out in SeaWorld in San Diego. I was in the Navy, got out, ended up working there part-time. I was the gopher, but became full-time, was surrounded by a bunch of great carpenters and scenic artists. And through that process, just learning about things on, the set side. They were celebrating their 25th anniversary in '88, and they brought in a professional stage company in that was called Upfront, and they were known for doing the stages for U2, the Joshua Tree at the time. And when they was doing the ice skating show that was produced by Scott Hamilton, and they also had the concert series, they realized they needed a stage manager. So my bosses picked me because I really was a low man on the totem pole that they can lose. And they asked me to go over there and take care of that section at Amphitheater. That first year, I got to work with such legendary acts and hang out with Dizzy Gillespie, Ella Fitzgerald, Stevie Ray Vaughan. On the ice skating side, I worked closely with Scott Hamilton and Randy Gardner and Debbie Thomas and a few other people, Olympic status skaters. I got let go, but I was allowed to come back as an independent contractor for the next couple of years. And from there, I still have my association with the staging company Upfront and learned a lot from the people that they were bringing for the shows, people like Chris Roberts. So when they would ask me to come out and kind of help them out with little things, I was asked to do like a test build. They asked me if I was ready to go out on the road. I said, no, not quite yet. And they said, good, you're not. And it's a good thing you know you're not ready. Just keep doing what you're going to do and you will eventually get there. And summer of '92, I got the call, come down to Texas, prep some steel. And my very first year of touring in '92, my first tour was with Genesis, which I thought was quite prophetic. The next one was Guns N' Roses, Metallica. From there, I ended my year with U2 on Zoo TV, stayed with that company for the next 3 years, did such acts as Madonna, Michael Jackson, Grateful Dead. And then from there, I kind of moved over into the production side, being a carpenter, moved my way up through that one. And then eventually a mentor of mine, Jeff Perrin, with his guidance and help of the people I worked with, said to me one day, you're ready to become a stage manager. And it's just been all downhill since then.
Wow. Talk about jumping in at the deep end, Genesis and U2 in the early years of your career. That's amazing.
It's terrifying.
And we're going to come back to this in a second, but what you're hearing from both Gena and J-Dot is not realizing that you're maybe, or being straight with yourself and not being ready for something yet, and rather than taking it and struggling, being open and honest with the people who are employing you and saying, like, maybe this is a thing for down the road. Matty, I know your story.
Do you?
I was there for part of it.
You want to tell it?
No, you don't want me to tell it. Can you tell us how you got into the industry and how you got to where you are? And also, you have quite a unique story in that you've been a production manager and you're now a stage manager, and that's a career path that not a lot of people take. Yeah,
I get that. Well, I started out originally, I was a drummer. I was a drummer in a band in Glasgow, and I sort of started touring with them, let's say roughly when I was about 18. So 18 years ago now. I moved to London, and I moved into doing session drums, which I did for a few years. And I think, you and I toured together as well on that. You were my tour manager. I think I was the drummer in the band at the time. And I kind of felt uncomfortable being in the band. It wasn't something I particularly relished. I actually hated it, if I'm being completely honest with you. Although I didn't really realize that at the time. And I came back off tour as a drummer, and my friend's band were going out, and he asked me if I wanted to come and do some rehearsals and push boxes and drive the van, which is a common way people get into teching anyway over here, certainly. Within 2 days of being in rehearsals, I realized that I did not want to ever play the drums again and be on stage. This just suits my personality so well. I love everything about it. The attention to detail was key for me as well. I think that making that decision was a hard decision to come to, because you kind of feel like I've not made it as a musician. But once you make your peace with that, it's the best thing I've ever done, and it felt so natural for me. That first tour I was on, there was a tour manager called Kez Dark who does a lot of big pop stuff over in the UK. He was about to go into a meeting with this new artist called Rita Ora, who was on the same management label, and said he was going to put me in for it. So I started with Rita on her second ever show as Rita Ora in Camden, somewhere in Camden in London. And my career path then kind of just followed the trajectory of hers. And then I went from Rita to Rudimental. Originally, I was stage manager and drum tech on that very briefly. And then the production manager left. And I kind of covered it because we were in the middle of festival season. So I kind of just stepped in to cover the role temporarily. And then the boys asked me to do it. And I said no at least 3 times because I was terrified and absolutely not ready. Absolutely not ready to do a job like that. But they eventually talked me into it. I had some great mentors who said, look, man, we know you're capable, but we'll look after you. If it hadn't been for them, I'd have definitely not swam. I would have sank. And then it took off from there. I was with Rudimental for 6 years. I took on another artist called Gorgon City for a little while. We did some sporadic other shows in the middle, and then I've been doing that ever since. I worked with Mo over in Denmark. I got Zara Larsson on my books, DJ Shadow very briefly earlier last year before the pandemic hit. But then I for various reasons, which I think we'll probably get into later, self-help reasons, probably mental health reasons, I wanted to make the transition across to get a little bit more control in my life back. And so I made the transition across to stage managing, which is where I find myself now. Yeah.
And for anyone that doesn't know, Rudimental, especially at the time where you were working with them, were one of the biggest bands in the UK, like festival headliners. They were.
They're a huge band, particularly with festivals as well, because every song it's like a karaoke anthem. You know what I mean? They'd hate me for saying that, but they're a real sing-along band. Yeah, they were huge, and it was really daunting taking that on. But you know what it's like. It's so many opportunities you get in this industry. You have to grab them with both hands and just run with them and see where you end up. And like we just said before, don't be afraid to ask for help. You're not meant to know everything. Just take the help that's there, and don't let the gift horse in the mouth. Yeah.
That's super important points to note, and a good segue into talking a little bit about the turning point, knowing you were ready to step into being a stage manager, going through all of our guests. When did you each know that you were ready to take that step into being a stage manager? And I'll start with you, J. Dot.
Well, being that I had been doing, I was given that title as stage manager when I was working at SeaWorld. And then for me, it was a process. I was given the title, I did a job. I was told I was really good at it and I should think about doing it as a career. But then I felt I needed to do more. That was a confined setting, like a theater. You didn't have to go out on the road or anything like that. Things came to me. So then once I started touring and doing stadium steel, I'm seeing really big productions going on. And I'm seeing stage managers like Opie and working with Jake Berry and all that, and these people are just making things happen, but I'm not quite grasping it. As I became a carpenter, you start seeing a little bit more, because now you're starting to see the flow of things and how things flow around you. And I started noticing some of the stage managers I worked with, how their style was and how they went in and out. And working with one of my first really big tours, and Malcolm Walden was my stage manager. And that man was an inspiration because he was always moving. He was always staying 3 steps ahead. And it was that kind of inspiration that said to me, well, I put that work ethic into being a carpenter, stay 3 steps ahead of my guys. And then it just let me know that I can make my way up to that position.
That's great. Moving along, Gena, can you tell us a little bit about when you knew you were ready to take that step into being a stage manager?
There you go. Well, I will say when I was at MTV, it was a very easy step to take because in the old days of MTV, the studio production crew did everything. And it felt like we were just a bunch of like 22-year-old kids directing, associate directing, producing on the floor, and stage managing. At the time, we'll get into this, I'm sure later, there weren't a lot of women who were doing the stage managing part. So that was sort of fun for me to step into, but I was very comfortable because I was so used to being on the studio floor with the VJs and the writers. We were pretty interchangeable at that point as far as studio production crew. The big step for me is when I stopped doing that sort of stage managing and went on to Saturday Night Live, which was something after seeing that show live a couple of times, I never wanted to do. I swore to myself I could not do. I didn't know how anybody in their right mind would choose to do that. And this is all personal, of course. But my best friend was a director and she asked me more than a few times. And I had said no, and she just try it out for one season and I've got your back. And I knew that she always did. So my first season there, I was shaking most of the time when I was holding my rundowns when we were live. I literally would be shaking. And after about 2 months, I was walking down the hallway by the dressing rooms and one of the cast members called me in. He was pretty new too at the time and said, I just want you to know that it's so nice having you here. It's so cool to have somebody our age who speaks our language, who's so calm. And we love having you. You're such a great asset to the show. So that was a step that gave me more confidence, I guess, and made me feel as if I could do this. And then the second thing was that first year we were doing a 20th anniversary show for Saturday Night Live, and it was to be run more like an award show, which I knew how to do from MTV. And the people who were there, their old stage manager, floor directors, had never done anything like that before. So I took charge. I brought in some of my crew from MTV, and we kicked ass. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. And it was the first time there where I felt like I had authority and I can sort of delegate to different department heads what they should be doing. So that was it for me.
That's really great. And something that we all see on the road is just that moment to really step up to the plate. And one thing that I've loved that y'all mentioned is that y'all knew y'all's strengths, that y'all knew that you were ready for certain moments and when to kind of dial it back and when to show up and apply what you've already learned from the past where that's come into play, to kind of give you that moment that you knew you were ready to kind of take the wheel on that. And, but continuing, Matty, when did you feel that you knew that you were like really coming into this position as a stage manager?
It's a little bit different for me, obviously, having sort of skipped the stage manager thing and gone into the production manager role, I think. So I'm not really sure what I can add confidently to that conversation that the other two haven't put so well. But I think one thing I would like to say is that I had the pleasure of working with a lot of really good stage managers as a production manager, and it's not easy to understate how different those two roles are, particularly on show days, as I think we're all probably aware. And I think, like Gena said, they're getting the confidence to delegate, and as J. said about, you look at the way other people do things and you move forward. And I think for me copying what other people had done essentially, and then figuring out how I would do that myself was a big role. And then sort of stepping across into the stage manager role was something that I just needed to do personally as well, I think, Does that help answer?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of our hosts have anything else to add, but I will be passing over to Adrian.
I'll add to
Henry.
that because, well, I can relate, Matty, because early on in my career, I I kind of went straight to production managing as well. And then it was kind of one of my first big breakout acts. Was with Fall Out Boy, and 5-1 was actually I was their production manager, but they were about to go on a very big amphitheater tour. So 5-1 was brought in to be our production manager. And so I stepped down as production manager to a stage manager. And I realized that like I wasn't ready to do to PM a full amphitheater run. So I totally get it. But then even just stepping down into a role I had never done scared the shit out of me. And
it will.
It was my first role as a stage manager. I was doing 10 trucks. That's a lot for a first time stage manager. How'd I do 5-1? I mean, I was pretty green back in the day, and I didn't even realize it.
But killed it.
But what happened was you put together this amazing team. So I had incredible leads in every department that I was able to learn from and go to. And you created that environment where it was healthy and okay for me to be sort of this green stage manager, but I was still like, okay, you're green, but you're sharp. So go get it done, kid. You know, it was kind of a healthy environment that you created.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, I just want to jump in there. I think that's a very, very important point you just raised, which is important for people to realize, is that whether you're production managing, I think, or stage managing, you have department heads for every department. So it's not my role to know absolutely everything about everything. You know, like as Gena said before, it's about learning to delegate. You have to learn how to, I think the most important lesson I got very quickly was being able to let go of that and share that responsibility with everybody else. And having these amazing department heads around you means that, you know, things just run like clockwork, and that's vital. And if the team's put together well, people like myself and like you just said there, we can be pretty green, but as long as we're sharp and we stay on it, you know, we'll figure out how to get the job done, essentially, you know.
It's been an ongoing conversation recently about how much you actually need to know to lead a project. The reason that you staff your staff with well-rounded people is so that you don't have to be the be-all and the end-all for all the knowledge. If you put great people on your team, those folks support you with their great knowledge, and your job is to just make sure that the thing, you know, continues to go down the right track. It's a great point, Matty.
Continuing to, in any management position, I think the key thing you have to do is be able to give the people on the ground, give the guys and girls on the tools what they need to be able to do their job effectively and properly, and in a stress-free environment as you can possibly do. It's
leadership is really a support role too, isn't it?
It is
For sure. Okay, so with that, we'd like to talk about a day in the life. So I'd love for you guys to give us basically kind of bang bullet points of how your day rolls. And we'll go to you, J. Dot. Hi, J. Dot.
Hello. Okay. So I had to write this down because there is so much to my day.
Yep.
But
this is like a lightning round. Stage management in you know what I mean? Yeah, it's a lot.
This is gonna blow people's minds. I know it's gonna blow my mind to hear all of what you guys do. So
typically my day starts off with meeting the promoter rep, the event coordinator, and the building person. Those are going to be my best friends for the day. And because if I need something, those are the people I have to go through to get something that's outside of our tour. So I always try to make sure I make that connection. And most of the promoter reps I know and building people, then, you know, meet with your steward. I have a habit I've done for years now, is I have my day sheet. And it starts off with my name, the city, crew breakdowns, times for the shows, what time we're going to do loadout, what those numbers are going to be, what's that breakdown, if we have t-shirts with colors. I give that all to a steward first thing in the morning. So I could say to him, look, here's all the information you need for the day. You shouldn't have to ask me a question unless it's something out of the ordinary. And it's so funny how times like, oh, what was your name again? I said, top of the page. So I just kind of like let him know, look, take care of that. I've thought about these things follow this and we'll have a good day. After that, what I do is while the riggers are chalking the floor, I chalk the backstage area. I go around, I find where storage is at, where the tech world's going to be. I write it all down so that when my guy's walking off the bus, they're not asking me a million questions at once. I can concentrate on things as it comes up. They know, go walk around, look around. There'll be their markings of where they're putting their stuff. I put stuff out on the front of house area with maps of where they're putting stage carts and stuff like that. Again, all this stuff to try to make my day just go a little bit smoother without having people ask me a million questions. After that, we go through load in. I go through my notes with crew chiefs. If there's anything funky they need to know, my lead driver, if we have to bring anything out of order because of, the conditions of the building. And then after that, I'm working with the local stewards and my guys about coffee breaks for the locals, lunch breaks, cuts, when we got to get to that. If I have a rolling stage, I'm trying to make sure everybody stays on track to make sure this rolling stage can get in place, because after that, I have to make sure we pass over the floor to the house so they can start setting chairs, and they have that time to do it in a timely manner. Then it's on to sound checks for the main act, for my main act, and then trying to get support acts up on, letting them get their time for their sound check. Then getting the building doors, make sure we're ready for doors. All the problems have been solved, giving my guys enough time to fix things if they needed to. Giving the house doors, let my production manager know we're ready for doors, tour manager as well, especially when it comes to like rolling the stage, letting the tour manager know stage is in place. Now they can come out there and they can start looking around and see where they can sell extra tickets. Everybody's trying to fill those seats up. Then after that, I'm working on my loadout map. I have a little thing that I do. I find a quote for the day, and I put that on my map so everybody knows, and I pass it, I write it up, get my copies, go all departments, let them know where the truck's going to be, what order it's going to be coming in. And so that way, when it comes time for that, and then it's, showtime. Let's make sure we're getting on. I'm a stickler for trying to get a show on time, getting people on and off, chasing our main artists, trying to get them out of dress rooms to get them on there, if I have any control over that at all. And then, just getting through the show. If I have cues during the show, I got to make sure I'm ready. All my guys are ready for, all my departments are ready for the show. Everybody's ready for the cues. Everybody's, if I have to call the show, I do that as well. And then before you know it, it's time for loadout and making sure the locals are all in place. If they're short, make sure I'm filling in the right departments and making sure all my truck drivers are on point and ready to go. And then it's just like, that mad dash of trying to get us out in a reasonable time so we can get some sleep and make it to the next city.
Fantastic. I think you did it. I think you did it. I don't think I went, Like, I think we got everywhere we needed to go in that short amount of time. Well done, J. Dot. Well done. Gena, let's talk the TV day, a day at SNL for you.
So you want rehearsal days and live days are a little bit different, like a rehearsal day?
So just for a second, I want to mention that generally, so people understand, you just don't have one day on SNL. It's not you come in, you do SNL and you leave. It's a number of days. So perhaps we could just explain that briefly and then talk about the difference between maybe a rehearsal day and a show day really quick.
Absolutely. So I'm in the building Wednesday through Saturday. And the show is live on Saturday night. A lot of people say, well, when do you tape? So it goes to air. And, Saturday nights at 11:30, we're live. So I go in Wednesday for a read through, and we read about 40 scripts, out of which 14 will be mounted for rehearsal. Out of those 14, anywhere from 9 to 12, depending on time, will be aired. But Wednesday, I just sit around, laugh a lot, listening to the actors and the host read the script. That's the first time I will meet the host. And I meet the host very briefly that day. I'll show him or her a cue card to check their eyesight, and then relay that to our head cue card guy, Wally, if they need the fonts bigger on the cards, how comfortable they are with the font that he writes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's Wednesday. Thursday. Thursday we have band rehearsal. I'll meet the band. We do promos and we do the easier sketches, the sketches that are not so much involved. That happens on Thursday. I get there on Thursday. I start working with the band right away. When band rehearsal is finished, we start on the sketches. And I'm also throughout the whole day trying to suss out the host, find their level of comfort, find out how I can make their stay with us more comfortable and more fun. We start blocking the sketches on Thursday. The director comes to the floor with me and we see what we need to do for the sketch. He picks out how many cameras he needs. We call the cast. The director stays on the floor once. We block it very slowly with the cast members. Then he'll go into the control room, and that's when I become his eyes and ears out on the floor. Then we do it twice again on camera. We make sure the host is comfortable. On that day, we only have one set of cue cards, and that's because we have so many changes at Saturday Night Live from the time we start blocking to air that everything changes on the cards. So there's one set of cards. So we do that on Thursday and Friday. And then those are my rehearsal days. I'm trying to keep the rehearsals to time. If the run through sheet says we're going to start at noon and we get out at 10 o'clock, that's what I try to make happen. I'm very aware of breaks for the cast and our crew, and aware of when our meal break is supposed to happen. And then Saturday is an entire different story. Go through that now.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yep. And I think while we're prepping for you to go into your day of, I think it's also important to let everyone know that on SNL, there is a talent stage manager and there's also a set stage manager. So there is a different person than Gena commanding the movements of the various set pieces into play, just as a point of reference.
That's right. I am the talent stage manager. But of course, we have each other's backs all the time. You know, if I miss something, my partner Chris knows if he misses something, I usually see it. So we work very closely together. So day of show, I also have notes too, because there's an awful lot. I'm in at 11 a.m. and I start by getting a timed rundown from our associate director. It shows the run through order of rehearsal and then the dress rehearsal order, and they're very, very different. So I fill out the locations where we have 7 different stages on our floor. I put the location so the crew and the cast know where everything is at a glance. Then I get notes from our producer, maybe because the cast will be dressed as much as they can for a run through, if we need to take a still that we'll use later in the show. So I get all those sorts of notes. Then I look at the rehearsal schedule, which we call the run through order. I start to see who's here. Okay, I need 5 cast members for our first sketch up. When are they going to get here? In this day and age, I can start texting them, see if they're here, make sure they're getting dressed. 12:15, I start walking around the set and looking at marks, making sure the actors have all their marks on the floor that they need. At 12:30, I start making the calls to the actors. I have an actors call that goes throughout the hallway, start to get ready for the first sketch up, keep reminding them what that is, then reminding who's ever in the second sketch that they need to be aware and get ready for that too. That's part of my job. If the run through order changes, I have to let everybody from cue cards to dressers to cast know that that's changing. I also start dealing with the talent people at that time, seeing where our host is. They usually come in about 12:30. Once they get in, I let them have about 10 minutes to themselves. Then I go into their dressing room, give them a big happy Saturday hug if it's not COVID, give them an arm bump now that it is, and start talking them through the rehearsal schedule, reminding them that they'll have all their sets of cue cards, seeing if they have any questions for me, and just basically seeing what I can do. It's a lot of hand holding in my position, or there used to be anyway. I don't hold anybody's hand right now. Okay, so while we start run through, during run through, I am watching the cast and the host. I'm also watching a monitor. So when I see if the host eye line looks weird or our cast members' eye lines look weird, I'm communicating with the card people to move the cards out, move them further upstage. And I'm also listening to the director if he has notes for the cast while they're on. This is our time during run through. It's our first time with costumes, first time with everything, first time with props, first time with special effects. If something doesn't work, now's our time to say this doesn't work. Let's change this because we have dress rehearsal in X number of hours. We try to have a meal break at either 5 or 5:30. My meal break depends on whether or not the host wants to go over the monologue again. If they do, I certainly am more than happy to stay and miss that to go over things with them or anything else that they may want to go over. After meal break, we do weekend update. That's the first time we're seeing weekend update, which
we love.
Which I love, which is always very, very fun. And then we stop down. Hopefully we'll have at least a half hour between weekend update and dress rehearsal. This sort of crunch time because the writers are seeing what didn't work during run through. I'm getting a lot of notes that things are changing. I'm also working with the dresser, the host's dresser. I work very closely with Donna, and she'll tell me at that point, I don't have enough time to get the host changed from this sketch to this sketch. We're probably going to have to hold, which in dress rehearsal we don't like to do, but we can do that. If we need another 30 seconds for the host to get ready, or one of the cast members, a cast member's dresser may come over to me and say, we're not going to make this change, so you need to be aware of that. We do the dress rehearsal at 8 o'clock. At about 7:45, I start the warm-up, which consists of one of our cast members doing stand-up and then a song by some other cast member. I try to time that out so after warm-up, there's only about 8 minutes till we proceed with the show, so the audience is still revved up. That's going to depend, though, on how big a set we have for the cold open. If we need to set the cold open and it's a huge set, we may need more time, as well as cast members. If there's somebody that's doing a song for warm up and then they're in the cold open, I need to talk to their dresser about how much time they need. So then, yeah, we go into dress rehearsal. Dress rehearsal is typically a half hour longer than our regular show because we're going to cut some sketches. After dress rehearsal,
Do you always end up cutting sketches?
yes, yes, they like options, you know. So definitely make more show on that side and then cut some off.
And is it possible that something that's cut on the day resurfaces and maybe shows up next week or in a few weeks and is revisited?
Absolutely. That happens a lot. And also some of the things that didn't make it to air are online now.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
Thank you. So dress rehearsal's finished. I go talk to the director because the director will have gotten notes from Lauren, our producer, just about maybe there was a boom shot, there was a late cue. It could be any number of things. The director will go over the notes with me. And then I'll wait for about 15 minutes. Then we'll have a meeting with all the department heads, the cast, the writers, and Lauren. And we'll see what the show is going to look like. We'll see what's cut. And that's the time really for me to see if something doesn't work. Sometimes they'll change an entrance or an exit of a cast member. And there's just been a few times where I've had to say that won't work because they've got a quick change. They need to leave stage left so we can get to that area. They can't get around the studio. So I'm constantly looking for things like that. After the meeting, typically we have about 45 minutes to the live show. During that time, the writer, everybody's making changes. Sketches are being cut within themselves. There's internal changes being made. Cast might be switched out. If that happens, I need to grab that cast member and show them the marks on the floor, show them what they're going to be doing. Typically, I'll have just 1 or 2 minutes with them. And if I don't have them, I just find them in their chairs where they're getting made up. Writers will come over to me and tell me there's a big chunk of this sketch cut. So instead of going from here to here, we're going from here to here, which will affect my cues. So hopefully I will get the scripts by the time we start the show. Sometimes it doesn't happen. As long as I get the cold open 5 minutes before the show, while I'm dealing with the warm-up, I can go through it and see what changes I need to make on the floor. If I don't get the script, I'm just trying to stay 2 pages ahead while I'm on the floor, which happens, and it's a little bit stressful, but it's fine. It's part of live that I absolutely love. And so during the show, I stay with the host. I tell them what's coming up next. I make sure they're getting changed. If we have a 2-minute break in between sketches, when there's 30 seconds left, I tell the dressers and the hair people, we go at 30 seconds. If you need to keep changing them, we do it on set. But I like the host to get to the set, see where the cue cards are, take a deep breath, acclimate themselves a little bit, and be ready to start the sketch. I communicate when we're live with the cast. If somebody's not in the right spot, there's some sort of sixth sense that the cast has with me now. They can feel me staring at them, and I'll move them this way, come downstage, need you to be a little bit louder. There's been 3 times in my 25 years where I've actually had to pass notes to cast members while we were live, because it was more than like this. So that's been interesting. So I'm communicating with the cast the entire time and the host the entire time. And we get to 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm pretty much done by 1:15. And that's my damn sure there are things I forgot. And I'm sorry if I spoke fast, but that's
wow. You did fantastic.
Yeah, I hope
That's
everyone
amazing.
gets to experience SNL at some time.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to see it. I've been there a few times, and it's amazing how that works. I mean, you have to picture what we do every day in a show is one thing, but they're doing it live with people. Like a lot of times it's not even people who are used to it. It's sports people. It's not, minor or different kinds of celebrities that aren't actors. So the people that they deal with in the live show that they put on is spectacular to see.
Indeed.
It's fun.
Alrighty. Yeah,
But
Gena.
I never do what you guys do.
Well, I don't know about Gena. I think that you have. It's definitely two different animals, but you definitely have the attention to detail. So we'll go over to Matty. Matty Roberts, tell us about your day. Hi.
First of all, wow, Gena.
Yeah. That was fascinating.
I can't even begin to imagine what that's like. It's terrifying. It's incredible, man.
Same.
I'm just sitting here like with listening to J-Dot as well, just making notes. I'm like, I'm gonna have that. I'm gonna have that. So
yeah,
mind blowing.
I tried just for a second. I tried to imagine myself when Gena was going through the step by step. I tried to imagine myself in her shoes for a moment and to see, try it on for size and see if I could fit that is a lot of detail. And, we have to hit marks in live in shows, but we're not subject to minute network television time. Like we have some wiggle room. Y'all don't have any wiggle room. All right, Matty, we're all, our minds are all blown by, we're like,
Saturday Night Live is an incredibly well-oiled machine. And we're talking about delegating, and everybody knows their job so well.
It just highlights to me
that shoe without a doubt.
It just highlights to me though how important it is. You have to be because it's live as well. You have to be thinking so far ahead all the time, not too far, but just far enough to keep that well-oiled machine moving, and that's incredible.
Yeah, the number of changes that she has on the fly is a little terrifying.
It really is.
The passing notes to SNL cast members while the show is live. I mean, we think we're cute because we do stuff on the fly with TM 101 and our back channels. We're definitely not passing notes to each other on national network television, right? So
it's crazy.
Girl,
it's crazy.
You won.
Yeah, 10 points there.
Yeah.
Mine is a lot more simple than that. I'm really glad to tell you. The first thing, similar to what J-Dot was saying before, I think he's doing much larger shows than me, so he has a lot more to think about, I think, and certainly on a much, much bigger scale. But for me, the first thing I do in the morning is, as J-Dot said, you find out who it is in the building that's going to give you the information that you're going to need to start your day. Power is always the first one from me. Where am I getting my power sources from? Because that would be 9 times out of 10 is the first question I'm asked, and then making best friends with my crew boss, because that's the guy that I'm going to need to have on my side all day, every day. He's going to be there with me every step of the way, and my relationship with that person is usually it's got to be pretty tight throughout the day. And I will start then going over with him my schedule for the day. So we all have a day sheet, which our lovely tour managers give us every single day. But I think it's vital to make sure that everything happens in the right order. So I will, like the other two, I'm try and be as detailed with that as I can for myself. So I have a schedule every single day. That'll be when my crew calls are going to be, when people start, when they're going to finish, how many people I have for each department. Obviously, their crew team starts when my department will start. And J-Dot touched on this as well, and I think it's really quite invaluable. Something as simple as color coding everybody, the crew, the local crew. You might have up to 30, 40, 50 people working every single day, and they've all got different departments. You need to know where they're going to be, who they're meant to be with that day. So each one of my department heads, whether it's audio or visual, I'll assign them a color, and I'll hand out high vis tops for my crew. So you always see where your team is, and they know where their team is as well. And I think that's pretty vital. Ultimately as well, I think it's imperative that everything happens in the correct order and when it does. So I would always think about, as Jada was saying there, about chalking out the floor. You get your floor chalked out, you go through the different things, you start thinking about where everything's going to go for the day, storage, your trucks are in the right order as well. Obviously you've got a lead driver, so you tell him some days you'll be able to get 2 trucks on a dock, but you might have 8, so you have to make sure they're coming obviously in the right order and go through those things. So I'm just checking my notes as well. I think once everything starts to happen in the right order, it tends to be sort of what's going to go in. The roof comes in first and goes up, and then you start laying cables, running cables, you start building your world. So you've got a video world backstage, you've got monitor world on stage left. Normally you've got your guitar worlds. Where's everyone going to be throughout the day? Video world is always the big one, because they always have all those screens and very comfortable chairs, which they always need a lot of space to deck themselves out, man. And then I'm kind of focused on my sound check time quite early in the day, sometimes a little bit too early actually, because I think your artist knows, and your tour manager, they know that they're going to have the artist on stage at, let's say, 2 p.m. for sound check. And if you can hit that time, I kind of gear the first half of my day towards that, because if you hit that time, stress levels for everyone are, they sort of disappear. You know, as long as the artist is on stage on time, then you know you can hit your door time, your support sound check times, all those sorts of things have to happen. If you do, one thing that we've had to do with Lewis is he would go to a B stage for an encore. So one thing I will always try and make sure as well I do is find out with security and people from the venue, how are we going to get him off stage? What's the route we're going to take him? How are we going to get him there? How long is it roughly going to take? You cover that stuff in your security brief as well, but you do a dry run so that as soon as I know that TM is going to ask me, the production manager is going to ask me, or Lewis is going to ask me, how am I getting to B stage? You have that answer straight away, and sort of
Hey, Matty,
about. Yeah.
Can you give us a quick definition on a B stage for anyone that doesn't know what it is?
Yes, of course. Sorry. So obviously, we all go to gigs and we see everybody, the band on a stage. A B stage is it's a secondary stage that might be somewhere. You may build a small stage. Sometimes it's only 8x8. It might be a scissor lift or something. You might build that at front house audio. So it might be, it's kind of protected by the barrier, so it might be there. Sometimes a B stage can be with Mo. We used to do a B stage for Karen as well, and that it can be referred to as B stage, but it might be we're taking it up to the balcony. So it's a secondary performance area, basically. I'm sure we've all seen it.
On festivals, sometimes your B stage is out in the concourse.
Yeah.
Could have an, you know, could your B stage could be your day players that are playing all day in, you know, various locations somewhere else. Yeah.
And it always got to make sure that you thought about how you're going to light it and if people are going to be able to see how safe it's going to be as well. Sometimes I've done done B stages before. I think it might have been at Brixton Academy where we had an artist up on the balcony, but that's quite steep and people can rush forward if they know that their artist is up there. So you have to thinking ahead to make sure it's all kept, make sure everything's safe as well. So where was I? So I'm aiming for my sound check time. And then obviously you've got your supports and stuff to get in. You have to get ready for that, and then it's about hitting doors and making sure that your doors open on time and everything runs smoothly from there. And I think after that, as Jada as well said, once the show's up and running, as soon as the show starts, I'm thinking about loadout. I'm making sure my trucks are in the right order. I'm making sure I know where cases are. I'm making sure that as soon as the show's done and the room is empty and you're given the green light, you can push that barrier back, get your trucks in position properly, and get loaded out as quickly as you can so that you can get some sleep before you start again, which is usually about 5 hours later. Yeah.
After bouncing down the road, right?
You get 5 hours in between shows?
If I'm lucky, I don't, which is about 2 hours normally, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is why we never see the stage manager on days off.
Yeah.
Because y'all are sleeping.
So J-Dot and Matty, Gena went over kind of what her day looks like for rehearsals and what she does for a live show, but what do you do to prep and rehearse for a tour? Can you both kind of go over what your schedule is and how you arrange for rehearsals for a tour?
Who do you want to take first? J-Dot, do you want to take it?
Sure. Well, normally, you know, my thing kind of starts maybe about like 4 to 6 weeks out, depending on what kind of information I'm getting. So I can start thinking about flow of things. I'm looking at designs. I'm trying to figure out how we're going to get this in and out. And then for rehearsals, it's the hardest part of a tour, in my opinion. You have to make a jigsaw puzzle work. Mary Jo mentioned that yesterday. It's a jigsaw puzzle because you see everything on paper, and naturally on paper everything fits, everything works. But then in real life, you have to make that adjustment for every building. And it's just that, okay, how do we get this in? How do we flow in with that? I'm also dealing with personnel. I get together with my production manager. We usually talk about personnel as who we're hiring when it comes to like our independent contractors, riggers, carpenters, because mostly everybody else is vendors and we don't have too much of a say-so who we get, but sometimes we do. And so you're trying to then, if you have new people you've never worked with, you're trying to figure out their workflow. How can you make sure things get done? And it's just that, that back and forth, trying to make things work, how to figure it out, how we're going to make this work on a daily basis. And it's, like I said, that's the most difficult part, because you're working and thinking about every small detail of everything all day long as everybody's trying to figure it out at the same time. So, ideas are flying back and forth, and you have to be receptible of, oh yeah, well, that might work a little bit better than what I'm thinking about. And that's the hardest part for me, I think, is that rehearsal time. And it's really, really hard when somebody comes up and says they're only going to pay you half pay. I'm not working half a day. I'm not doing half the job, but I still am expected to do the full thing. So it's that for me is like one of the hardest parts of touring.
Yeah, I think I'd like to just jump in there a little bit on what you said there about the jigsaw puzzle side of it. And I think it is the hardest bit, because that is when, in rehearsals, that's when you're figuring out how it's all going to fit together every single day, like you say. And it is really important that, I think what you said there was, sometimes there might be somebody else who has an idea of how to make something work just that little bit better, something that you maybe just haven't foreseen. And I think being open to that all the time is really, really important, I think. Because and ultimately then once you're out of rehearsals, the first few shows, as I'm sure we all know, it's a little bit suck it and see. You're like, is this going to work? How is this going to come together? But once you're a few days in, the idea and the aim, certainly, I think, is to have that well-oiled machine on the roads. It should start to become muscle memory a lot of the time, I think, rather than constantly having to worry about, is this in the right place? Is that in the right place? Everyone starts to see it. You can start to see the wood for the trees, so to speak. Would you agree with that, J.
Oh, definitely.
I love the first few days of a tour when you're in that stage where some of those amazing gags that you build for the people are in their test phase, and everybody's really using their best ingenuity and skills to make it run. I think everyone, and I think for me, watching people collaborate on those efforts is very exciting. I love that part of our job, when the team really gets together and starts using all of their collective efforts to problem solve together. It just gives me so much joy, to see that happening. Teamwork makes me very happy.
I think that's one of the best things about our industry.
Love it. Yeah.
You have so many people from so many different varied backgrounds. I mean, like, I've known people who started off with engineering degrees and also they ended up being out here on the road. So they bring a mindset with them to look at a situation so much different than the way I would. And then you have those who come from a theater background and they have that technical knowledge to say, oh no, we need to do it like this. And when you combine all those different ideas and personalities of experience, those skill sets shine at the most during those times. And
they really do.
That's when we come up with that best product, because we're all aiming for that same thing. What's going to be the best show that these people are going to see when we do that opening night?
Oh. Yep.
We're going to move into inclusion and diversity on the tour. Matty, unfortunately, I won't be addressing you on this one. So it's going to be Gena and J. So I always like to start with ladies first. So Gena, can you tell us, when did you realize that your gender had nothing to do with you doing your job? And were there any incidences where you had to tell people, step off, I got this?
Sure. Being very young when I started at MTV, and being in a position where I was the only woman on the floor sometimes. I don't want to say a lot. There was stuff directed toward me that should not have been. I was very comfortable in the fact that the people at MTV always had my back. the director would come rushing out of the control room, which she had done many times if she heard something incredibly inappropriate being said to me. But, you know, my baseline always was, I'm here to do my job. I know I can do my job. I love my job. I love where I work. And you're not going to sort of ruin that for me, you know? So I dealt with those sorts of things once in a while, but understanding that I was in a place where I was really supported was just incredible. And I was never afraid. And I was able to use being a woman sometimes to my advantage. When we would do, this is good or bad, I don't know, but when we would do spring breaks and we were rehearsing with a band, say we had our rock show. I remember one specific instance, and the band was playing and my director was like, oh, they have to stop, and we hate to stop a band when they're rehearsing and they're playing. We hate to stop a band in mid-song, as I'm sure all of you know, but we absolutely had to. And they were like, well, send Gena out there. And, you know, it kind of worked because I was able to just speak in a different way that a male stage manager did, or they didn't want to scream at me because I was a female stage manager. Might have been that as well. But they would always sort of say, you know, send Gena out to talk to them and tell them to stop whenever there was something that nobody else wanted to do. And now thinking about it, it was probably sometimes because I was a woman, people might have been a little more gentle, and maybe that good or bad could have been used to my advantage. But yeah, as I said, my baseline was always, I'm here to do a job and I do it really well. And if you spend a half hour with me, you're going to see that. And whatever you feel about me walking onto a floor and seeing a woman, and I'm also very small, your mind's going to change in a half hour and you're going to understand I know what I'm doing.
Badass. Thanks, Gena. And how about you, J-Doc?
Well, I'm almost, in some aspects, the same, but almost the opposite. Because where Gena's 5'2", I'm 6'2". I'm a big guy, dreadlocks. You notice me when I walk into a room. And sometimes, well, I should say not sometimes, but most of my career, and I'm going to say probably like 90% of the acts that I've worked for have been rock and roll, pop, white acts. And a lot of times I have been the only person of color on that tour, especially on the crew, with maybe the exception of security or a band member. But actually the person working on the floor, I'm probably sometimes the only person of color. And I have just come to realize that I'm here to do a job. And if you are going to be adult enough about it to just take me on one-on-one as a person is trying to do a job, then I have no problem with you. And most of the time, I have no problem with anybody because of my size, I have to maybe come a little bit gentler with people. I have to disarm people, let them know, oh no, I'm not just going to come in. I have a loud voice, but as I say, I have a loud voice, but my voice is not to yell, it's to be heard, because there's a lot of noise on a loading dock and in an arena and stuff like that. So I have that booming kind of voice. You don't want to see Black Rage come out. It's not a pretty thing. But the thing is, I like to make sure I'm going to give you respect the way I would like to be treated. And so therefore, if we come along from that direction, I want this to not be an issue about my color, because it's about the music at the end of the day. And if you look out into these audiences, especially nowadays, it's a mixed looking audience. That means it's going to relate to everybody. So backstage, it has to be the same thing. So I just try to make it so that, no, this is not about my color. It's about us doing the job together.
And you're also really fabulous. And we talked about this yesterday, and you won't say this and say that this is part of your skill set, but those of us who have worked with you and know you will say that you're also quite fabulous. So there's a part of you where your physical appearance might convey or be perceived as threatening. The moment that you open your mouth and start talking to people, it's easy to understand that you come in peace and you want the day to be great. And that's your whole demeanor. So I would say generally that the most disarming quality about you, J. Dot, is the person that you are.
I thank you. And that I give that credit to my mother and my family. That's the way I was raised. That's the way we were. I don't know, maybe because I'm a child of the 60s and the 70s, you know, peace, love, and the whole 9 yards, you know, that's just something that's just carried on. And, you know, there's no need to be disarming. Yesterday in the prep talk, I had somebody tell me once that I worked with, he said, you have to be more of an asshole like me. And I'm like, that's not who I am. And, you know, I can't be that guy. I'm not going to be. I know how when my mother would yell at me, I just tune it out. It's in one ear and out the other. And I mean, like, if I'm going to be a stage manager, I want people, when I say something, I want them to hear me, not be that blatant, you know, black guy, because that's not going to work. It's just not going to work.
And like you said yesterday, you get more with honey than with vinegar. And I think that goes for all of us in any position. So,
well, especially of management, because we have to do the massaging, you know, from tour managers, production managers, stage man. We have to massage the different personalities everywhere, in you know, from talent, especially with talent. Those are high ego people who are used to people saying yes to them and giving them what they want. And sometimes we have to be the people to say no.
That's true. Yep. And know how to finesse that. Or as 5-1 likes to say, the Japanese way. Don't actually say no. Yes, maybe.
I think so, maybe.
I think so, maybe.
Yeah.
I love that.
Or, you know, always improvisation, the first rule of improvisation, which I lean on a lot, is always try to start with yes or yes and.
Yes, and.
Yeah.
Even if you know that you can't, but first when they ask you something, yes, and then you talk it out, and then usually they understand why that can't happen. But if you start from a place where let's try to make it happen, it's a lot easier for them to understand that it can't and why it can't. But it's nice to try, you know, it's always nice to try to give somebody what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, that solution-based demeanor and that candor and the way that we talk with artists. I mentioned this yesterday, that one of my favorite things about stage managers is the different personalities that you can play, because you're, you know, 1 minute you are directing, you know, 30 stage hands on the dock, and then the next second the artist is walking through the hall and the tour manager is handing off that artist to you, and then you become like a whole different person. And it's magical, that moment, because typically that's maybe how that happens, is either the tour manager or production manager, it kind of varies between acts, but the artist gets walked from the dressing room to the stage, and then I hand off my artist to the stage manager, where they put them into a little box or something that's going to shoot them out, or under the stage, or fly them up. And you know, it's very true. And, you know, I need my stage manager to be that friendly, calm face, because maybe I'm putting that artist in a huge lift that's going to take them to the ceiling, and they have a fear of heights. But, you know, so the demeanor that you bring to that situation, and making them feel safe, and that the whole crew is here with you right now, so let's do this, is worth its weight in gold in the stage manager. And so I love that. That's a great skill.
Yeah, Henry, on Shakira, we had 2 stage managers. One that was completely Sean Saucier, who was completely dedicated to just her. She had her own personal stage manager for the entire show. We had a show stage manager, and Shakira had her own stage manager that controlled all of her moves and all of her props and all of her stuff. That was Shakira. So we had 2 on stage at all times.
Well, I mean, you're talking J. Dot over here, and then there's Craig Finley in the room. And I'll just say, guys, how many stage managers did y'all have on Beyonce? And how many of those stage managers were production managers? All of them, probably, right?
That's TC on that, right?
There's a lot of firepower on that, right, J. Dot?
On those shows, yeah.
Yeah. How many stage managers?
And you're lucky on those because there's a lot of shows that I do. I'm the only stage manager, and I got 20 trucks, and I'm most responsible for everything. But then when you get some of those big ones, you need that extra set of eyes that's going to help you out. That's going to be working alongside with you. When I did Rihanna, I was lucky with Rihanna because I had a show stage manager who did the show and all that. But then come loadout, we can divide and conquer, and we can get, we did a 2-hour loadout in France in a stadium because I had that help, those extra set of eyes that can, take those extra steps with you along the way.
Charmel says Terry Cooley. That's right. Yeah, Terry Cooley. Yep.
He's amazing.
He's amazing.
Beyonce basically doesn't do a show without him. And whenever it's a cool thing, if you ever see Beyonce on stage and her hair is flowing, chances are that Terry is down in front with the fan, waving the fan at her, getting her hair to blow. He is like the guy, and they only let him do that because there's that relationship, and he understands the choreography, the way she moves. He can understand the little wink that she may give him, what that means. There is an unsaid sort of communication between the artist and the stage manager.
For sure.
I bet you have to use that a lot, Gena, between the cast and yourself.
I absolutely do. I mean, I have, I think, 14 different personalities. And I know what I can tell by watching them if somebody can't see a cue card.
Yeah.
If they're having trouble, and then I'll look to cue cards, and maybe there's light shining on it, so I need to get the cue card person to then tilt them forward. Or if somebody's not in the right place on stage, the cue card might be obscured.
Right.
I can tell if there was one time years ago where, for whatever reason, somebody lost their prop on stage. And I could tell they were fishing for it. I could tell exactly what happened. I looked around and I saw it under a bed. And that was one of the few times where I snuck onto set while we were live and pushed it out for them. I've had to do that a couple of times, sneak onto set because somebody lost something. But there's definitely a communication. And when you have one person like that, like Beyonce or Rihanna, I used to have Jon Stewart like that. And I would go to John to do, if he was doing an award ceremony or whatever, and you know exactly what they want. You can tell by looking at them or seeing the way they're looking at you, what they need. There's definitely that, which is very, very nice.
Right. Sorry, I was waiting to see if somebody else hopped in. I wanted to move on the conversation, and thank you guys for that because I love those moments. They're so intimate. It's one of my favorite moments, to be honest. Handing off the artist to the stage manager is just this little moment of I don't know how to put it into words, but it's a special moment every day. I wanted to actually turn the conversation to mental and physical health on tour. And I wanted to start by talking to Matty, because I know, Matty, I think part of your motivation in moving from production management to stage management was related to self-care. And I'd love to talk to you about that because we really love to talk about that in terms of our jobs and mental health. So tell us a little bit about that.
It's such a vital thing. It's been so good at the last little while. The conversation about mental health on tour has really started to take off and be taken seriously. And I think that's important. Big part of my motivation from going from production to stage was being able to come home from tour and have a little bit of control over my life, not being on call 24/7, because I've only ever lost one job in my career, and it was no fault of the artist at all, but it was because of my mental health. I come back from the road and I hadn't been able to to deflate and control it properly, and things just started getting on top of me and on top of me and on top of me, and I couldn't get out of bed, you know, and that's an awful way to be. And I think when you're on the road, it's vital that we all look out for each other in that respect. And I think now it's starting to become a lot more, it's taken seriously now. People are giving each other space. And somebody said something earlier on when we were talking about, this afternoon, I mean, was it Justin Bieber's stage manager or something?
Tour manager, yeah. We had Chris Gratton on last fall was talking about how they are making time on tour now, an hour that's mandatory for everybody to call their family or take some time.
I just think that's incredible, because it's so easy to forget to do those things. You have to, because I think when you're on tour, I certainly find it, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me here, you become very insular and you kind of forget that there's a world outside of the tour buses and outside of the loading dock, and things can really take toll. And there's I've obviously been touring with Lewis recently, and Lewis and his manager started a thing called Live Live, where we've been touring with a couple of guys, Jack and a few others, and they're in every venue we go to, they're creating a quiet room, a safe space for people to be able to go and unwind and deflate if things start to get a little bit too much, and really promoting that side of it. And that's primarily it's for the kids at the show, but also we're aware of, while we're on tour, that as crew we can use that facility as well. And I can't begin to express just how important that has been, just knowing that is there for me, having come from 18 months before where I was on tour and I felt crushed by the whole thing, and not having no outlet, and not being able to, you know, call the person I need to speak to a therapist, let's say, for an hour, because my therapist is in the UK and I'm in Australia and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and that's not going to work, you know. It's those. So yeah, it was a massive move for me just to be able to get that little bit of headspace. I'm very happy on the road doing an 18-hour day, but I think I'm trying to, the reason for the move for me was getting that balance back in my life, which I lacked for such a long time. And once that snowball starts to roll downhill, it's very, very hard to, it's very, very hard to deal with it. It's, you know, it stops. Yeah. It stops you doing things.
Yeah, it takes a lot longer to recover from than it does to get there.
Really,
you know,
really
once that ball starts rolling, you know, on our Spotlight on Audio episode, our guest talked about how for them, you know, looking after their physical and mental health plays a huge part in being able to keep themselves at peak performance as an audio engineer, because it affects their hearing, you know. I wanted to ask all three of you guys, you know, Gena and J. You can hop in too. Like, as far as self-care, you know, and keeping yourself, you know, mentally rested, mentally healthy, does that affect, you know, your performance? You know, do you have to be aware of that? Because you guys have to be on all the time. And like you said, think 10 steps ahead and make those decisions. So how do you?
And you know? I think that all three of us probably understand that we take care of other people constantly. So we really do need time to take care of ourselves, and we forget about that sometimes. I know that I do. And of course, I don't have the stress that y'all have, because on Saturday nights at 1:30 in the morning, I'm in a car home, and I have Sunday to decompress and Monday and Tuesday. So
there was something, sorry, Gena, there was something interesting I picked up when you were saying earlier, actually. I can't remember exactly what it was, but you said that you would, if you needed to, you would skip a meal break while you're at work, which is something I'm sure we've all done. But ultimately, it's little things like that, which you sacrifice yourself oftentimes for the better, you know, the greater good, if you like. And I think that's something that we all need to be really wary of, because it's different for us all, I'm sure. But once you start doing that, you keep doing it and you keep doing it and you keep doing it. And that can lead you down that path that none of us sort of want to go down. And that's why I think what you're saying about Justin Bieber's tour manager and then taking the mandatory breaks, that for me is, I've never heard of anyone doing that before, and I think that's incredible. Forcing yourself to look after yourself so that you can be as good at your job as possible, because we all know it's stressful enough in the first place.
Yeah. Do you guys see do you think that there's more of an emphasis on that now than there has been in the past, or are we just hoping we'll carry that forward?
Sorry.
I personally hope that it's something that we can move forward with. This past year alone, we have lost so many of our road family to mental health issues, addiction, all those things. And this is off the road. They compound themselves on the road. And it was like Gena said, that we take care of so many people. And I know personally, sometimes if I see one of my crew members not being themselves, being off or something like that, I try to say, hey, what's going on? You need to talk. I pull them off the side, oh, it's the girlfriend, it's the wife, it's the kids, I'm missing home, and it's always something that, it's out of their immediate control. And you try to help them work through that piece of their life. But, if we all knew there was a space that we can go to, that we can decompress, we can get some kind of control for the moment, at least, so we can deal with stuff. It's definitely going to help us all in the long run. And it's mentally and physically, it's going to give you that moment to just step back, reset, and maybe go back out there and do what you have to do, and then deal with what's going on at home or what other personal issues you may have going on.
Yeah, I think it's such a, Craig Finley in the chat just said stage managers are also the eyes on the crew, always keeping an eye on the young folks, who is always late and why, who is hungover, who is not even here. You're the eyes and the big brother and the whip. It's true though, as a tour manager, like if I need to know something about a crew person, like if I'm just wondering, like, are they having some problems? They look sad. Like I can almost always get a little more information from the stage manager.
It's such a good point raised there as well, because I've made this mistake where I really wish I hadn't done, but I've made it in the past, where someone is possibly not behaving very well on a particular day. They're angry, they've been stressed with the local crew, they've been stressed with each other. And what you have to do is stop. I have to find myself trying to stop myself being like, shouting at someone or telling somebody off because they're not being very good, and actually think, well, why is that the case? Is it the case, like J. said, you've got to pull them aside and say, hey, what's going on, man? Try and get to the root of the problem. We all have to look out for each other in that respect, I think.
I'm actually just looking at questions just a couple questions. And that leads right into one that Phoebe asks. And she said, can the guests speak to mistakes that have been made on their part and how they recovered from them and the lessons learned? And I think that's one that you said right there.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to remember that there is so much going on all of the time that you're not going to get it right all the time. If you make mistakes, if you do something silly, if I react badly to someone for whatever reason, or they do to me, that's okay. That happens. It's how you deal with it and rectify that problem at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think our world is a little bit more forgiving than Jena's, because she's live TV, and if you make that mistake, it's going to go out there to the world, and it's going to be on videotape on YouTube forever to see what that mistake was. We have that leeway to go, oops, oh, that didn't work out so well. And we also have that thing where, and because it always happens, even our artists can make mistakes up on stage. The audience would never know that there was a mistake, there was a miscue, that something went wrong. But the crew knows, because we know how that show's supposed to go.
Right.
And if we're all smart and we all realize, again, nothing's going to be perfect all the time, but we learn from that experience. Never going to do that one again, because, it could be something that could turn into, it could have been a whole lot worse. And we all don't want anything to become a whole lot worse. There have been those major accidents in the world of live music that you go, oh, people can die if we don't do what we're doing right. So we got to make sure we get this right all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jenna, do you have any
I don't make mistakes.
okay.
No, of course I do. The last, usually though, it's more on rehearsal days,
Mhm.
honestly.
Mhm.
I did make a mistake last season where we had multiple sets, and from run through to dress to air, the cue lines for the actors to leave one set and go to the other were changed. So they had been changed, they went back, and then it went back again. It was like 4 different. So I pulled Alec Baldwin and one of our cast members out of a set, started to bring them over to another set, but they had one more bit in the first set. So all you saw in the end was them walking onto set. They should have been preset, but it screws with them, because they're both looking at me like, are you sure? Are you sure? And I always say, don't question me. Like, I know what I'm doing. And in this case, for whatever reason, I missed that last change. I missed it going back to the way it had been. So that was and the way I dealt with it was you brush it off, because as J-Dot said, they don't know, the audience doesn't know that they were supposed to be preset. So you brush it off and you get through the rest of the show, and then constantly text the actors after, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, please forgive me. And yes, you should absolutely listen to me on the floor. You did the right thing doing what I said, because that was my fault, it was not yours. And that's how I dealt with it.
Oh, I think, yeah, Henry started to speak, but it was muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, next question. Patty Byrne wants to know, could you talk a little bit about show stops? Intrigued as how that works as a stage manager. J-Dot, do you want to address a show stop?
Normally when a showstop in live music comes, it's because of an emergency situation. Weather, like lightning. There has been a catastrophic failure with some kind of equipment that has put our artists in danger. And what has happened, and I've been very lucky, it's only happened very rarely in my career, but basically it's the production manager, tour manager, stage manager. First thing we do is, what do we do collectively to be on the same page, how we're going to address this? And sometimes, like if it's dealing with something like lightning, then you're dealing with a promoter rep and your building person, because then we're getting direction from the building to say, we need to stop. We need to make that announcement over the PA to say, okay, everybody needs to come. If we're outdoors, come off the lawn, take shelter, go to your cars, something like that. When it comes to something that has happened during the show, that's sometimes you just have to just like, okay, is the safety of our artists, is in danger? And if it is, then you just have to immediately just pull the plug and say, oh, stop, wait, we need to fix this. And most of the time, your artist is always gracious enough to understand that this has something to do with safety. And they will, that lead person will come out there and make some kind of announcement, maybe sometimes, or joke with the audience to let them know, oh, we just have a little technical difficulty, and hopefully you don't have that one guy that's berating, your crew member because something has gone wrong. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of just getting on board, coming up with that quick plan, how we're going to do it and get through it.
Yeah, that responsibility is crucial. That response time, and and as a production manager, I really do trust and empower my stage managers to make those calls. If you're in that situation where you maybe need to make that decision because you are in charge of that deck at that time, then you have to be ready. But as well as you said, it's a collective. There's always other entities like the tour managers or the promoters involved when it affects the entire show. But do we have another question?
There was a question from the chat on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, for Harmeet Bhatia, I believe that's how you pronounce their surname. What are apps, tools, etc. that a stage manager finds invaluable besides Microsoft Office or Master Tour, Google Drive, etc., the standard apps? Are there any specific things that you find helpful? Gena, let's start with you. Do you have anything in particular?
Honestly, no. I'm very old school. I carry around a clipboard and paper scripts because I'm constantly writing notes, and that's easier for me to do than to put on an iPad.
I like being analog as well. Analog doesn't crash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think things change so much and so often as well, like as you go through the day. Like Gena said, pen and paper, man.
I have
You know?
I have the little folding notebook that can slip in my back pocket so I can take notes down, because there is just, I don't have time to always pick up my phone and type with big thumbs. So it's easier for me to, scratch write what I need to know real quick, and that way I can keep abreast and know what I'm doing. And then if I need to write it down into something else or email even, I'll have that go-to to go to.
Yeah, I love that. That was probably not the answer that anybody expected, but you know what? Like, I just find same here. Like, I always have a little notebook with me and just like scribble stuff down. Like, your notebook's not going to crash.
I do have a template which I print out for myself every day, which is a sort of, it's like a day-by-day checklist, basically, which I'll be going through. But I also have a section, it's an A4 piece of paper with my clipboard, but I'll just jot down notes. Got a little space there where I can just write notes down as I go through the day. And I think that's, pen and paper all the time.
And on that note, I think we're at that time.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
we're over time. This has been so much fun. I really
know.
Yeah, Gena, J. Matty, guys, thank you so much for being here this week, and everybody that has sat with us for the last hour and a half. This has been an amazing class. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
This has been incredible. Thank you so much for joining us today, and for everyone that's here with us around the world, tuning in for Stage Managers today. This has just been incredible. Like always, our episodes are live every Monday. We'll have more announcements this week once we drop for next week's episode, and we look forward to seeing you at the next class.
And thank you to all of our pros in the room. Craig Finley, love to see you. Dave Oken, Galen Henson, Lorraine White, all you fabulous folks that come and lend your flavor to our weekly sessions. We appreciate you as well.
And if you're on Clubhouse, we're doing a Wednesday Clubhouse now at, is it 5 p.m. Pacific time?
5 Pacific,
5 p.m.
8 Eastern.
Yep. And we just touch on,
I think we
whatever
might be doing
topic.
tricks. We might be doing tricks of the trade on Wednesday.
I think that's what we're doing on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Apps, tricks of the trade, things like that.
Yeah.
That'd be
So
awesome. Well,
it's
everybody,
a little more loose and laid back, and
join us for the chitter
Thank you.
chatter, won't you? As Prince used to say, come early, come often.
Be nice to see everybody once COVID is done. If you're ever in New York,
honest to
Yes.
goodness.
Most definitely, 100%.
Honest to goodness.
100%.
Thank you, esteemed panelists. Today was amazing.
Yeah. All right. Be safe, everybody.
You too.
Thanks. Be
Thank you.
safe.
Zoom wait.
Later.